So today, I want to talk about mindfulness, and particularly in the context that it has become. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Okay. So today, I want to talk about mindfulness, particularly as it has entered common popular consciousness. And I think there are two ways to think about mindfulness. When I'm stressed or very busy or overwhelmed, mindfulness can become a tool to take a break from the craziness that's all around me. And of course, being overwhelmed and feeling pulled in so many different directions is psychologically harmful. And so we can work on taking a break. So mindfulness could be an attempt to take a break from the craziness and to find inner calm. And today I want to take perhaps a different approach to mindfulness, which is truthfully not outside the realm of the common idea of mindfulness, but I think it's one that is more particularly oriented to Jewish thinking. You know, in the beginning, we talked about shavas vayinofash, taking a break and breathing. And today I want to talk about being within and breathing. So there's the meditation. I could think of it from a Shabbos, from a Jewish perspective. We can think of it as the meditation of Shabbat, of Shabbos, where we take a pause. And then there's the meditation throughout the week while we work. And of course, they both exist all the time, right? And so let's go straight to the philosophy. If you would turn, if you have a book and you want to turn to page 121. And we'll talk about the nature of existence. Hello, Bracha. Now that you're here, you can arrive. The nature of existence, or the nature of the way existence emerges. And so this is, let's say like this. Let's take a step back from everything, okay? Jewish teaching tells us that the world comes yesh me'ayin, ex nihilo, something from nothing, out of nothing, okay? Come inside, come inside. Don't be a stranger. That the world comes out of nothing. And of course, we talked about this yesterday. We can't imagine nothing, right? You close your eyes and try to imagine nothing, it's impossible. Because even imagining nothing is a thing, right? Even our awareness of it is a thing. But nonetheless, the world, the universe, has a beginning. And if it has a beginning, then there was, before the beginning, there was nothing, not even time or space. This leads philosophically, or logically perhaps, to the notion that the natural state of, or the neutral state, is non-being, right? That's, in order for something to exist, that is an act of creation, or it is an emergence from nothing. Once I said the most important question of all is, why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there anything at all? And embedded or underlying this question is the understanding that something is not the neutral or default. I can't say the default existence or state of being, but certainly existence is a positive, generated state, right? So that indicates that there is a positive force or a generative energy that's bringing the world into existence. Note, I said bringing the world into existence. Many people talk about, quote unquote, God created the universe. This is not the Jewish approach. This is not what Judaism believes. Text 5. A common perception, this is from the Shnei Luchot HaBrit, 16th and 17th century Kabbalistic and philosophical and halachic work. A common perception is that God created everything out of absolute nothingness, and that in the beginning of creation, God imparted to the hosts of the heaven, that is the forces of nature, the power. Here, when he says the forces, the hosts of the heaven, he isn't talking about spiritual. He's talking about the natural powers that be, that facilitate growth in the world, right? So we understand that we have the sun that provides nutrients, and in a sense, Earth is also a heavenly body, right? We're also a planet, right? You look up in the sky and you see Saturn, you could see Jupiter, Mars. And if you were standing on Mars, you would look up at the sky and you would see a little star called Earth, right? So God imparted to the hosts of the heaven, the forces of nature, the power and ability to run the world. So God would have created these forces. God would have created these laws of nature that then continue to perpetuate in the world. And so the world thus, this is the common perception, right? That the world thus operates according to its manner, as if God had created it and let it go. And it's only that occasionally God might desire to override or intervene in the natural order, bringing about unexpected and surprising and miraculous occurrences. But as long as God doesn't override it, the world runs on the power it obtained at the time of creation. Right? So this is the common perception. However, says the Shalah, this is not the proper belief. The proper belief is that God, mechadesh betuvo b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit, that God in his goodness renews each day constantly the first act of creation, actively directing his flow of vitality. So if God wanted to end the world, should God cease to generate this creative vitality and this generative energy, even for one instant, all would be as naught. Its existence would be utterly nullified. So let's think about an animator, right? If you want to think about somebody who's making an animated film, like they did in the olden days, 30 frames per second, right? So what did they do? They would draw a picture and then draw another picture and another picture, each one with a little bit of movement. And then you flip the frames, you spin the frames, and then you see a moving picture, right? So what happens if the animator wants the story to stop? He simply doesn't draw another picture. what happens to the characters when the animator stops drawing the pictures? They don't go away. They simply stop existing. As a matter of fact, Jewish philosophers take it even one step further, or just to think about this a little more deeply, what it means to revert to be existence would be utterly nullified. If you with the example of the animated film, there still is the beginning of the film, right? But when existence is nullified, it's as though it never was, right? And we'll pin that thought for later. We're going to come back to it. Right. This, says Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi in the second book of the Tanya, he wonders, there are people who go to great lengths to find natural explanations for the miracles in the Torah. You have miracles described in the Torah, and you have all kind of documentaries that are trying to find natural explanations for these events. Or they reject the idea that miracles happen at all. Rabbi Shneir Zalman says, I don't understand you. You believe that the Torah is true. You believe that God creates the world. So then what's wrong with a miracle? Why do you need to explain a miracle? Why do you need to defend the miracle? Text 6, page 120, starting on page 123. Herein lies the answer to those who deny individual divine providence and the miracles recorded in the Torah. This is the root of their error. They err in comparing the work of God, creator of heaven and earth, to the work of man and his schemes. So he's going to psychoanalyze, or not psychoanalyze, but analyze the philosophical flaw in a person who believes in God's creation but has difficulty swallowing miracles. He says, because they look at the world and they say, I see the world as it is, and therefore, for it to be any other way than it is problematic or hard to imagine or needs some explanation. We can't accept that the world would be anything other than it is. The laws of nature, in a sense, are immutable. He says, Reb Shneir Zalman says, when they say this, it's because they misunderstand how creation works, or how the emergence of reality works. They think that it's like a person making something, but there's a fundamental difference between the way a person makes something and the way the world comes into being. Bestach, do you know the story? God is sitting in heaven. A scientist says to him, God, we don't need you anymore. Science has finally figured out a way to create life. And we can now clone human beings. As a matter of fact, we can even make a person out of the earth. We can, just like you did. You made Adam from the earth. We can make, form it into the likeness, and we can breathe life into it, and we can create man. So God says, no, let's see. So the scientist bends down and starts collecting dirt. God says, no, go find your own dirt. So, continuing in the words of Rabbi Shneir, that was not from the Tanya. Returning now to the Tanya. When a silversmith has completed crafting a vessel, that vessel is no longer dependent on the hands of the craftsman. And even when his hands are removed from it and he goes on his way, the vessel remains in exactly the same image and form as when it left the hands of the smith. And these fools conceive of the creation of heaven and earth in the same way. However, their eyes are blinded from seeing the great difference between the work of man and the making of heaven and earth. The work of man consists of fashioning one existent thing out of another already existent, merely changing the form and appearance, that is, processing silver into a vessel, and of course, working within the pre-existing laws of nature, right? The human being makes things out of other things within the context in which he finds himself. However, when something is created from nothing, or when existence emerges from non-existence, the whole context, the fundamental laws of existence are emerging constantly. And so in that case, if the power of the creator, if the generative energy were to be withdrawn from the thing created, God forbid, even for an instant, the created being would revert to naught and utter non-existence. The activating force of the creator must continuously be present in the thing created to give it life and ongoing existence. So we understand that divine energy, generative energy, creative power is constantly bringing all of existence into existence from non-existence. Okay? So far, everyone's with me? Sort of. Okay, I have a sort of over here. Let's see if anybody else has a sort of. You have a sort of? You have a question?
How do scientists explain the miracle of fertilization?
I don't, not mixing here with science. Again,
you said miracle.
Science, even fertilization is something from something, right? Remember, go get your own dirt, you understand? How about my online people? Does anybody have, how are we? We getting this so far? Joshua, you with me?
I think so, yep.
Yeah? I have a bunch of...
yeah, it's really interesting, yeah.
Okay. So everyone's following me so far? Okay. Tell me. Linda, Zug, you have a, can you articulate a question? That would be very helpful.
Just that you were saying that, like, when an object is created by man, that's it, and the object stays and doesn't need man anymore. But we need for organic and inorganic, I guess, also need the creator's presence all the time. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a memory of us.
Correct.
So that part I'm a little confused by.
What confuses you about it?
I mean, if you were here, how could you never have been here?
Okay. So the question was, we understand the idea that, so tell me if I'm hearing your question right. We understand the idea, we understand the concept that unlike a thing made by people, we have to, we can let it go and it remains. But when things are created from nothing, from truly nothingness, they need the constant energy to keep them into existence. But it's very hard to understand how the memory of something could disappear, right? So I guess we have to, I mean, there are two ways to approach that question. One is that we can't imagine nothingness because our very existence is consciousness. Right? That's, how did he say, Descartes? I think, therefore I am, right? An even wiser man said, I think, therefore I think I am, which is even deeper. I don't know who said that, but I saw it on the wall in Manhattan. Somebody spray painted it, so that stuck with me. So yeah, so that's one thing, is that we can't, we don't have, it's natural, Linda, that you would not be able to understand it because we can't imagine existing outside of consciousness, because of course we only exist within consciousness, right? Our existence is consciousness. Another way to understand it is that memory exists in the minds of created beings. And so as soon as there's no created being, there's no memory. Another way to explain it would be to think about going back to the animated film, instead of talking about the work of the animator, let's talk about the work of the projector, the actual projector of light, right? The image of the film is a projection of light onto a screen. What happens when you turn off the screen? It's gone. There's no sign of it left on the screen, right? So in that sense, we revert to nothingness. But again, hold on to this problem, because it's meaningful. It's going to be important. It's going to be even more important soon.
I thought she was asking, once I'm here, why do I need God anymore?
No, that wasn't the question. No, that was the preface to the question, that she understands what we said. Yeah. Okay. So, summary: the world is sustained by divine energy, by creative energy, and needs to be perpetually created in order to remain in existence. Just like, and that's the nature of the way something created out of nothing is like the projector that shines the light, or like the animator who keeps on making the pictures. Now, we can think, so here's where I want to take us one step further, okay? To think about we can think about the creative process as a continuous stream of creative energy, okay? But that supposes the idea of the continuous stream supposes a status quo state of being that's being maintained, okay? Right? Which is still a kind of default state of existing, being maintained in a continuous stream. Instead, our liturgy speaks about text 7, HaMechadesh betuvo bechol yom tamid. God renews in his goodness the work of creation each day, continuously. Why the wording, the language, each day? We experience the renewal of creation in a daily cycle. We sleep at night, we wake up in the morning, and we feel as though we're created anew. It's one of the ways in which we can access consciously the feeling of the restart of creation. So the authors of the Siddur, of the prayer book, are telling us an important meditative tool that we can use to bring this idea into our consciousness. Which is not to think of creation as a continuous stream, but rather to think of creation as constant impulses of creation, constant impulses of creative energy. So we go to the idea of moment to moment, breath to breath, heartbeat to heartbeat, which of course is very much connected with that image of the animator. Picture, stop, picture, stop, picture, stop. So of course we don't see the stops, but actually creation, or let's say the nature of existence, is such that there really is a constant flickering of energy or a constant pulsing of energy. We have this in the daily cycle. We have this in the cycle of our heartbeats. We have this in the cycle of our breaths. More largely in the cycle of birth and death. But we can't meditate on the cycle of birth and death because we don't experience it as a cycle. We experience it as an on and off, right? But we can experience that cycle with the daily birth and death of waking up in the morning, being reborn, going to sleep in the evening as 1/60th of death, which the Talmud, how the Talmud relates to it. Okay, so this is a very abstract idea, and it's not, this is not the way we think. It's not the way we experience existence, right? So we take a few moments to sit with this idea and let it work through us a little bit, okay? You like the image of the movie screen? You like the image of the movie screen? Is that a good meditative tool? Good evening. Find a seat where you're comfortable. Settle down. Okay. Okay, let's settle into a meditative, comfortable pose. Make sure that we are not disturbed by our body or by any other distractions. If you'd like to gently close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths just to gain focus. Picture yourself in the movie theater. Everything is dark. And you're waiting. And all of a sudden, the sound and light of the projector and the speakers comes on, and a panorama opens before you. And you see the images on the screen, you hear the sounds, and you're experiencing a story. And the story brings up feelings in your heart. You laugh, you cry, you are afraid. Or you feel comforted by the story. The rich colors, you are immersed in the film. And suddenly, the projector's lights turn off and the sound stops. And the story is interrupted. And so we turn our attention to our own reality, our consciousness, our experience of existence, matter itself. We feel our body and its physical form. We're aware of our awareness of our body and its physical form. And like the feelings that we have while watching the film, we are being generated and brought into existence every single moment, from moment to moment. And we are grateful for existing and for the creative energy, the generative force that is propelling us into existence from moment to moment. If you'd like to open your eyes, you could look around and see the world all around us. It's being brought into existence from moment to moment. Okay.
That's not what happens to me when I watch a movie, by the way. Which is just distracting.
What happens to you when you watch a movie?
You become immersed in the movie and you only feel that you're an energy in the movie.
Yes, yes. Immersed in the movie.
As a non-entity, as just an energy force, not as a being with
Right,
arms and legs.
right. You lose
You
yourself.
lose yourself.
Your existence becomes, so that's a great example of how your existence becomes defined by this projected light, right? It's amazing.
But when it stops, you look to the projection room, to the person who's with all
Yes.
nine powerful eyes to bring it all.
Yeah.
You know,
Maybe when we go over the meditation again during the week, that's a part to bring in, is that sort of our whole, so many things that feel real to us are a result of these apparitions that we see in front of us. Now, we're not saying that they're fake. We're not saying that they're not real. But we are saying that their realness needs to be constantly renewed. And it's a different kind of real. We experience in our human existence, we experience there to be a difference between the permanent and the temporary, or the temporal, where there are things that are here in a stable way, and then there are things that are fleeting, like our thoughts, for example. I think that's another great meditation, to be aware of our thoughts. Let's try that. You know what? Let's try that. Okay? Let's meditate on our thoughts. So what am I thinking about? Think about a happy place. My happiest place. In order for that happy place to remain in my mind, I continue to concentrate on it. I continue to generate the image in my mind. Then as soon as I choose, I can picture a white elephant. And then I can picture a particularly sad time. A time maybe when I was embarrassed. And I can feel the feelings, feel myself going back there. But I'm putting in effort and energy to continue to generate that thought. And then I change my mind again. And I return to my happy place. And here again, at every moment, I'm consciously directing my thoughts. Okay, we open up. When you're ready, return. So now with our thoughts, we do have a constant, even our thoughts exist in the stream of consciousness, right? The context of the capacity to think always exists, right? But here because again, even this most fleeting of existences is created something from something. It's the act of thinking created out of thoughts, or created out of the capacity to think. And but it's an interesting way to think about, if the whole world is the will of God, in the same way that maybe it's a way to understand that there's a constant attention or energy that is that's generating this reality. Okay. All right. So far we got it. We feel like we got it. How about my online participants? I've got a few online participants. Yeah, Joshua's with me. Can I get an amen? All right, how we doing? I have a few faceless squares, but I feel like you're listening. Okay. Now we'll shift to focusing more on the pulsing energy of creation. Okay. Every moment, God is investing the creative energy, the generative force toward creating this moment in time. And so if God is creating with intention, this moment with a fresh burst of creative energy, it follows that there is an intent, right? We say the world, just like our thoughts are created by our attention or by our intention, the world is brought about by God's attention or intention. And what follows then is that each moment has meaning. It has purpose. So let's see text 8, page 127. Humans, even not in a perfect state of balanced mind, will not do anything without a reason and motivation. Even madness has a method. Oh, Veistach, you know the story? I think this one only works in Yiddish, but anyhow, the story goes that in the town of Lubavitch, there was the town's, there was that eccentric person in the community. They used to call him the town fool, but nowadays we call him an eccentric person in the community. And or the town Meshugana, and he got a letter from a fellow eccentric who lived in another town, who said, "Come with me to Minsk. You live in Lubavitch. Come to Minsk. Minsk is a big city, and we'll make Meshuggah together." So he says, "I'm a Lubavitcher," he says to himself, and a Lubavitcher doesn't do anything without asking the advice of the Rebbe. But would they let the town fool to have a private audience with the Rebbe? I don't have such a good reputation. Unlike the Rebbe would probably speak with me, but the Rebbe's secretaries and managers wouldn't let me get near him. So he had an idea. The Rebbe used to go out for a daily ride in his carriage to clear his mind and to meditate, And so he waited by the town gates, and as the Rebbe's carriage passed through the town gates, he jumped onto the wagon, pokes his head through the window, and he says, "Rebbe, should I move to Minsk or should I stay in Lubavitch? And the Rebbe said, we need you here in Lubavitch, stay. Oh boy, they were ready to pull. By the time he finished the sentence, the Chassidim had pulled him off the wagon. And what are you doing? He says, I had an important question to ask. He said, and I needed to ask the Rebbe, and I knew nobody would let me. So they said, where did a Meshuggah like you get such a good idea like that? He says, Meshuggah, aber seichel darf man haben. I could be crazy, but you got to have some wits, you know. So, anyways, the point is that even the madness has a method, and that when we do something for a reason generally. So, certainly the creator, the director of the universe, who is not only the creator of the entire universe, but is the creator of me. God knows my name. The universe generates me. The creator does not create an entity that lacks a definite purpose. And so each individual day, each and every moment of the cosmic dimension of time is an individually created entity. There is a pulse of energy in this moment, that is distinguishable from every other moment. It isn't a stream, it's pulses. In other words, the purpose of any single day in terms of that which God expects us to accomplish is unique. It's not only unique in terms of Sunday is not Monday, or Purim is not Pesach, right? New Year's is not Thanksgiving. This day is unique among all of the days that have ever existed and will ever exist. This moment in time is unique in all of time. There is one each, and remember, in between, in a sense, you could think that in between each creative burst of energy, we go back to nothingness in a way, right? If it's a pulse, it's a pulse of creation that needs to be renewed. And so in between the pulse of creation and being renewed, there is the possibility of nothingness. Or maybe even real nothingness. But of course, we're not aware of that because we can't experience nothing. But if this needs to be constantly renewed, then it means that the previous moment went away and a new moment is generated. And so the newly generated moment is a one-time thing, which has never existed throughout all of history. Since the beginning of time until the end of time. It's a unique entity. Let's read on. The proof is straightforward. God created this day as an individual unit of time. And so he surely has a unique purpose for this unit of time, this unique creation of his, that cannot be accomplished with any other unit of time. Were that not the case, God would have no need for it. He would not have created it. And so the task of the servant of God, who was created for the overt goal of serving God, is to utilize each day consonant with God's will, through accomplishing the purpose unique to that particular day. So we're talking here in terms of the day, but of course, that's also true for the moment. We're talking in terms of the day because that's how we experience that pulse of created energy. I mean, this we experience, yes, that each day is an entirely distinct thing. No day is ever repeated. Right? Maybe I should have started off with that. No day is ever repeated.
Why? I go every day to work, the same thing.
If it's the same thing, but you had to do it again.
I have to do it again.
That's right. It's not exactly the same. You're doing it all over again. The day that you went before is not the same that you went today.
take the train, coming back.
Yes.
going to
And
school,
every
go back,
time, every
it's the
day
same.
you do it all over. So what you did yesterday doesn't last till today. You're not still at work, right? The act, you had to actively go to work, be in work, then you go away from work, right? And that moment is past, and that's why you have to go back to work. It's like you have to eat breakfast again, right? Why isn't breakfast from yesterday still here? It went away. You have to make a new breakfast, right? So even if you're doing the same task over and over again, it's still a new task. It's the content, let's put it this way, the form of the task is the same, but the substance of the task is entirely new, right? For example, if you have eggs and toast every day for breakfast, right? It's the same every day, but it's a different egg and a different toast, right? Or that's the story with the boy who went to the Bronx Zoo, and he sees in the zoo a lion and a lamb sitting next to each other. And he says, wow, this is amazing. Mashiach came. It's Messianic times. The lion and the lamb are sitting next to each other. He goes over to the zookeeper. He says, this is amazing. He says, I know, the lion loves him. We give him a new lamb every day. So the same is true with every day and even every moment. But the point is that this, just like that egg is unique, that toast is unique, that lamb is unique, this moment is unique, and it has its own purpose, its own birth, its own purpose, and its own death. Not in a bad way, just in reality, it goes away. And so the appreciation and awareness that God creates each moment for a purpose is what we call in Jewish thought living in the present. Living in the present moment. So this is perhaps a different idea around mindfulness, where this is not the pause and find a peaceful place and calm down and gain your, and recenter your, and kind of breathe and get away from the hecticness of life. This is understand that the hecticness of my life right now is a moment like none other. And to appreciate the uniqueness of today, to appreciate the uniqueness of now.
So even if you're having a bad day, you actually still consider the unique moment.
A bad day is still a day, right? One way to think about the bad day is, right, we think about what it means, right? We can go back, we can think about the fact that this is a day that's unique. Then we remember that the uniqueness of this day means it's created alone with a purpose in mind. And then we have curiosity. What is this day? What is the purpose of this day? What am I being called to? It's connected a little bit to the idea that we talked 2 weeks ago about divine providence. Now, now we're going to return to the idea of memory. Right? Ezehu chacham haro'eh et hanulad. Who is wise? One who sees the consequences of their behavior. Okay? But the words literally, ro'eh et hanulad, mean that which is born, or that which is being born, which means that each moment is pregnant, expectant, with possibility, potential. So, in a sense, while we're in this moment, we recognize that this moment contains in it memories from the past, possibilities for the future, and yet it's still only a moment, right? So when you're talking about why wouldn't we remember that it existed, that is a moment of consciousness in which I'm remembering something that was, but it's still a moment of creation. Even the capacity to remember what was is a created moment. And again, we don't say haro'eh et ha'atid, ha'atid, one who sees the future. We say one who sees that which is pregnant in this moment. So we direct our attention to, we could look at that as the potential of this moment, what we're trying to create, but we can also refer to it as the meaning of this moment. At the same time, the baby doesn't come until the baby's ready to come. And so, as my mother would say, you can't push the river. And so we live so often with the future. And what ends up happening is that we're not living in the now. But living in the now doesn't mean ignore the future. It only means, what is my relationship with the future in the now? What is my relationship with the future in the now? I remember the first week of the COVID lockdowns. And I'm a hospital chaplain. And things were crazy. And I came home one Friday afternoon, and I bought on the day before the lockdown. It was madness. Went into CVS and I bought a thermometer, a fancy one. Man, they wanted to charge me $70 for it. I bought the last one on the shelf. Anyhow, so I checked my temperature obsessively. Come home, I checked my temperature, and you had to check your temperature before you went to the hospital. That was the rule. But I would check my temperature 3 times a day. I said 3. Yeah, that was a conscious thing. Like, no, you don't have to do it again. You already checked your temperature. You came home. You checked your temperature in the morning. I checked my temperature when I came home from work, and I checked my temperature when I went to bed. I drew the line there. Friday afternoon, I checked my temperature, and it was 100.1. It was 100.1. And in that moment, it was, well, I understood how I had pretty clear ideas about how it could be 100.1, And I thought to myself, I'm on borrowed time. And I realized in that moment that I have a choice. I have a choice to think about the fact that I'm on borrowed time, but also I didn't die yet. In that time, everyone thought COVID is a death sentence, and for many people it was. But I realized I didn't die yet. And right now, I'm alive. So by golly, I'm going to live. Even if I think I'm dying. And a lot of months went by where my colleagues got infected. And throughout the whole first and second wave, I never caught COVID. But I walked around constantly with the anxiety that I could be an asymptomatic carrier. And at any moment, I could have been infected yesterday. And at any moment, I would become symptomatic. And this meditation helped me so much. This awareness that I have this moment right now. And in this moment, I might be an asymptomatic carrier, but that's not the meaning of this moment. If I'll start feeling shortness of breath and I'll end up in the hospital on a ventilator, God forbid, that'll be then. This is now. And sometimes I had to lie down and go to sleep and just let the thought pass. But this awareness that there is meaning in this moment, and it isn't the future. It's what's pregnant in this moment. It's what's present in this moment. What's present in this moment might be that I have to do something for the future. But then again, I'm doing something now. That's the meaning of this moment, of doing something now.
It's very hard to think this way.
That's why we're in a meditation class. If we would, Bracha says it's very hard to think this way. And that's why we're in a meditation class. Because if we thought this way naturally, we wouldn't need to meditate on it. Yes, even with meditate. That's why we have to meditate every day. Now, going back to the example of bread and of breakfast every day, eggs and toast. The Rebbe said that we have to pray every day very hard, because in between today's prayer and yesterday's prayer, we ate 3 times. And eating is the act of becoming conscious of yourself, of your selfish self. Not in a bad way, but just myself as distinct from the rest of the universe, such that I need to be fed with another thing. And prayer, for more, you can join our class on prayer, which just started on Tuesday nights. Prayer is the act of connecting myself to a universal divine awareness, okay? So in between today's prayer and yesterday's prayer, I ate 3 times. So I have a lot of work to do to reset myself and to redirect my consciousness. And if we look at the text, the second paragraph of text 11, I skipped the first part. We are supposed to consider the future and set plans in motion that will rescue us from future harm. But concerning that which is not within our control, we should have full confidence in God and not worry about it. We have to ask. And so there are 2 steps that are in this thinking process. Part number 1 is recognizing that everything is created at every moment with a purpose. Every moment is created with its purpose. So God creates everything from nothing, which means that everything is created at each moment. And if it has its own uniqueness, that means by definition, it has its own unique identity, its own unique intention, its own unique meaning and purpose. And so I have to focus on what is the unique meaning and purpose in this moment. And it isn't something which I can't control. It's not possible that maybe the meaning and purpose of this moment is partially to clear my mind from the things that are not in my control. That might be what I have to do in this moment in order to prepare myself for the next moment, to be able to do the thing that I have to do and not be distracted by anxiety, etc., etc. right? So I might have to pause and clear my mind, but I'm taking control of this moment with the intention of being in the next moment. But right now, I'm now. Right now, I'm now. Okay, so far, what did we say? We said that each moment is created anew with intention, with God's attention and intention, and therefore it has its own existence and its own meaning and purpose. And I have to ask myself every moment, what is now?
I have a question.
Yes, Jane.
I want to ask you, if you hesitate and think about your response, I understand that it's beneficial because you'll be more in control of your emotions, and you might hesitate and be a little bit more constructive in your words. But can it be interpreted sometimes as passive aggressive if you don't respond at all?
So let me make sure I heard your question right. Is not responding to something somehow being passive?
Being passive
Passive aggressive.
rather than actually being controlled.
Well,
And capable of
responding.
Of responding in a kind way, or in a beneficial way, or in a constructive way.
You know,
can it be interpreted sometimes by the person who's listening as passive aggressive, really as hostility?
I'll tell you, this is what I think about it. I don't know that what I'm saying is definitively the right answer, but this is what I think about it. Part of what I have control over, part of what I am called to do in this moment, involves that which I know in this moment. So if I know a way to respond kindly and effectively, then
effectively, not necessarily kindly, but
well,
effectively.
If I have a way of responding in a way that's positively effective, beneficially effective for the world, let's say, because then that's what this moment calls for. But if in this moment I don't know a positively effective way to respond, then this moment doesn't call for a response.
But it might be interpreted, if you can't respond positively, effectively, it might be interpreted as passive aggressive.
And that's something that I can't control.
Yeah.
In somebody else, but in yourself, you should be able to control.
Right, I can't control someone else's response.
Correct.
If I don't, meaning we can act in ways that intend. So we're getting a little bit off the subject, I think.
I don't mean just somebody else's response, but actually within yourself, it's passive aggressive.
Well, within yourself, it's
not just the interpretation.
Right. So within yourself, it's only a matter of, am I acting with the intention
passively aggressive?
Positive. The question is always, am I acting with the intention of being positively effective? And if I'm acting with the intention to be positively effective, then that's all I can do. Now, we can sometimes act with the intent of eliciting a certain response in someone else, but that again is only about my intention in this moment to act in a positively effective way. Ultimately, after this moment, after the moment of my action, it is no longer my work. Now it's their work. Yeah? Jane, we good?
I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if I agree with it completely, because I think that it's not just the interpretation. I think it's what you're portraying within yourself as well.
Yes, yes. So
It's both. It's a positively ineffective way of. It's a negatively ineffective way of treating the situation, and therefore it is interpreted as passive aggressive.
yes. Well, we will do our best, right?
Absolutely, and I will do my best as well.
Yes. Okay.
Do self-analysis on why she wants to be passive aggressive.
Okay.
Thank you, Reverend Mendelson.
You're welcome. Okay. So this is the question that we ask. So the present moment is kind of expectant with the twins, the past and the present. The past and the present. So living in the present doesn't take away from or deny the meaning of life. It lends deeper meaning to our lives and places more responsibility on this moment. But we want to say that this moment shouldn't be affected negatively by the worry of what is not in my control in this moment, but it should be filled with the intention to try to do good in this moment. So the practical question is, can I do anything now that will help a future problem? If the answer is yes, then the future exists in this moment, and I will do something. If the answer is no, then the present exists only in this moment. The same thing is for the past. Does the past teach me anything that I need to know in this moment? If the answer is yes, then the past is part of this moment in a positively effective way. If the answer is no, then the past doesn't belong in this moment. Or is there anything that I can do right now to repair the past? If the answer is yes, then get to work on it. If the answer is no, then it's holding you back from the present moment. Guilt is the easiest path to nobility, to the feeling of nobility, I should say, where we can make ourselves feel better in a way about something bad that we've done by feeling bad about it. Right? I did something bad, and I can't just accept that I did something bad, so I have to feel bad about it. But what is that accomplishing? It's depressing me. It's slowing me down, right? It's making my face sour, right? So the Rebbe would say, the Baal HaTanya would say, it's important to reflect on the mistakes of the past. Choose a time. Choose a time to do that. At the end of every day, I'm going to have learning and reflecting time. Okay, so that's the moment when this is important. But the rest of the day, it's just a fake path to nobility. It's just a way to make myself feel good about something that I've done wrong by feeling bad. So that's the toxic presence of the past in the present. So we want to return always to the current moment and what is the purpose of the current moment. This is Jewish mindfulness. To be aware that creative energy is generating this moment with purpose and intention for a purpose. Okay. Now we have some cute It's not cute. It's an important meditation technique. How many seconds are in an hour? Who knows how many seconds are in an hour? In an hour. All right, while you're thinking about that, I'll tell you a story. There was a shlamazel who won the lottery. And he says, and they asked him, "Nu, how did a shlamazel like you?" And you know what a shlamazel is, right? Shlamazel is somebody who has no luck. The word shlamazel means shalom mazal. He has no luck. She'ein lo mazal. He has no luck. So, so he says, how does a shlamazel like you win the lottery? He says, "Oh, I picked the number 155. How did you get to the number 155? Well, my father told me that 13 is a lucky number. So I did 13 times 13. It's like there, 13 times 13, that's 169. He says, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I messed up the joke." He says, how does a shlamazel like you win the lottery? He says, it was a little bit of brains and a little bit of luck. So he says, what? He says, I picked the number 155 because my father told me that 13 is a lucky number. So I did 13 times 13. That was the brains. 155, they said. 13 times 13 is 169. He says, that was the luck. 3,600 seconds in an hour. Okay? So now, have you ever been present in shul for the blessing of the new month?
Yes. They do.
Yes. We announce before the blessing of, right? So in our shul, I take the Torah and I say the new moon will appear over Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, Jerusalem, the holy city, on Wednesday, let's say, at 16 minutes and 3 chalakim after 5 o'clock, right? That's how we say it. So we say the minutes, we say the hours, the days, the hours, the minutes, and the, not seconds, the parts. So they're not, chalakim are not seconds. There are 3,600 seconds in an hour. There are 1,080 chalakim in an hour. When the sages did the calculations to project the lunar cycle, they used the number 1,080 to divide the hour into smaller parts. The mathematical reason for this, says Maimonides, is because 1,080 is very easily divisible into all kinds of parts. Divide it in half, divide it in 3, you could divide it in 5, 8, 9, 10, you could divide it in all different parts. So he says it was very mathematically, how do you say, useful, right? But there is a spiritual reason for what the 1,080 in an hour might mean. How many breaths do we take per minute on average? 18 breaths per minute is the normal rate of respiration. I used to be in EMT. 18 breaths per minute is an adult normal rate of respiration. What's 18 times 60? 1080. Right? So generally, on average, we take 1,080 breaths every hour. So the number 1,080 is also a powerful number on a spiritual level, because the mystics explain that in general, every year has a unique spiritual energy. Every month has its own spiritual flow. every week, day, and hour has its own spiritual flow. And so there is a divine energy in creation that is directed towards each of these qualities. So for example, the 7 days of the week, in Kabbalistic terminology, we have the 7 divine midot, the 7 supernal energies that are described: kindness, love, kindness, restraint, harmony, victory, splendor, connection, and royalty. Right? Those are the 7 spiritual dimensions which follow the 7 days of the week. Now, the monthly and hourly divine energy follows not the 7 Sephirot, it follows the 4 letters of God's name, right? Each letter is a divine energy, is a creative energy, right? When we speak also, we speak in letters. And so each letter is generating some reality. It's a generative and creative force. And so how many ways can I, how many ways mathematically can I rearrange the 4 letters of God's name? So there are 24 ways, right? I can divide them. I could.
The things are both the same, so.
That's true. The Heys are both the same because it's Yud, Hey, and Vav and Hey, but they're different Heys. It's the same letter, but it's a different letter. It's just like the egg and toast, right? It's different. And Kabbalistically, of course, the first letter Hey and the second letter Hey is a different thing. One is the upper Hey, one is the lower Hey. It's a different energy. Yeah. In English, it's easier?
Yeah, because. Why?
H, V, H. Yeah, same H. So 24 represents the 24 energy modes, right? 12 for the months of the year, 12 for the hours of the day. So when we divide the hour into 1,080 parts, each of these hourly fractions, there is a new energy emerging from another one of the combinations to provide energy to the entire cosmos. So okay. So the Kabbalists suggest that there are 1,080 possible combinations of God's name. How do we, this is what they say. How does it work? I could offer some suggestions, but I don't really know for sure.
I'm still trying to figure out 24. I figured 16. That's why I asked you for the formula for combination.
If you multiply, okay. This is what they say. It's the way that they arrive at the number is very deep into Hebrew numerology, into Hebrew language, with the milui and the nekudos and all this kind of thing.
Formula. So I want to know the formula.
What the formula is? That has to do with if you know this concept, then you'll figure it out. If you don't know the concept, then you wouldn't figure it out. If you multiply the Yud Ke Vav Ke with the Milu Yud, with the Yud Vav Dalet, not just the Yud. Not the Yud is 10, the Yud is 26. I'm sorry, the Yud is 20. Yud Vav Dalet. So you have to add up the additional the secret letters, the hidden letters of the 4 letters of Hashem's name. Right. Okay. So based on this, so we return back to the idea now that we have 12 or 24 divine permutations representing the 12 hours of the day. And we have 1,080 Kabbalistic permutations of the divine name of God, representing each breath. Representing each breath. And so each breath is a unique permutation of the divine name. And so in the book Reishis Chochmah, page 136, text 15, it is explained that there are 1,080 parts to an hour, reflecting the 1,080 permutations of the divine name. These 1,080 hour fragments also reflect the 1,080 breaths that we breathe each hour. With each breath, we inhale life-giving energy from another specific element of the divine name, as indicated in the verse, from that which emerges from the mouth of God, a person lives. It is as though God is breathing life into us in this fresh breath, a breath that we've never taken before and will never take again. This is a unique breath. Seeing as God who gives us breath and life, our every breath should be directed towards serving God. This is the intent of the Midrash. Every neshama will praise you. Every soul will praise you. Rabbi Levi quoted Rabbi Hanina as having stated, Al kol neshima uneshima. With every breath, I should praise God. As we reflect on this, we'll be afraid to sin and we'll conduct ourselves with humility and unpretentiousness. After all, how can we transgress or act frivolously with the life that God is giving us at this very moment? Okay, so let's reflect on this briefly. Let's meditate for a moment on the moment that we're in right now. So let's take a deep breath, because that's about the breath, right? In and out. As you breathe in, try and breathe all the way down to your abdomen, expanding your abdomen with the breath. Breathe out, tighten your abdomen, the breath goes out. Expand, contract, in and out. Each breath is unique. It is an action that appears like the one before it, but it has its own energy, its own divine energy. And it's as though the breath we take in is God breathing life into us, in and out. Everything flows in and out. The tide comes in and the tide flows out. It brings morning and then evening, in and out. Petals close of the flower, petals close, petals open. Everything flows in and out, just like our breath. Inhale, exhale. Every breath that I take, a new phase of reality, a new opportunity. Imagine if I could be conscious and aware of each moment in depth, realizing that God is breathing in and out, so that I could have a world with constant new opportunities. Each moment, God is breathing life into me, breathing life out deliberately into me, bringing this moment into being for a purpose. If I could be aware, look for the opportunities that each breath brings into my life. Live deeply, live meaningfully, live purposefully, breathe deeply. When you're comfortable, enjoy the breath in and out, and rejoin us. You can open your eyes. So, the takeaway, the meditations that we practice today, the practical applications, have the ability to enhance our lives, practically and spiritually. Practically, they can ground us to the attention of what's possible in this moment, and to help us to let go of the guilt of the past and to not be slowed down by worry for the future, only to ask, what is in the power of this moment? It also, but more importantly, this is not just a wellness practice. This is a spiritual practice. This is a godly practice, because it asks us to ask ourselves, or to pay attention and to be aware that this moment is a unique creation from God with purpose, and that I should be aware of something invested in me for a divine purpose, as part of the divine intent bringing the universe into being. Every inhale and exhale is a focus on my power in this moment, and connects me, if I direct my attention to it, connects me to the divine intent in this moment.